Daniel Brooks wiped the condensation off the observation window and stared at the swirling purple clouds of Kellarian Prime below. The research station was quiet at this hour, with most of the crew already asleep. He preferred working the late shift. It gave him time to think while he cataloged plant samples from the surface expeditions. The xenobiologist carefully placed another specimen under the scanner. The small green plant had tiny crystalline structures along its leaves that caught the light in fascinating ways. He was making notes when his communication device beeped loudly, breaking the peaceful silence. Daniel frowned. Emergency messages at this hour were never good news. He touched the screen, and his supervisor's face appeared, looking unusually pale. "Daniel, you need to come to the command center immediately," Director Hampton said. His voice was tight with tension. "What's wrong? Did something happen on the surface?" Daniel asked, already moving toward the door. "Just get here, now." Daniel's heart raced as he jogged through the empty corridors. In 3 years working on this station, he had never seen Hampton look that worried. Maybe there was a medical emergency. Maybe the Kellarian government had changed their research permissions. He ran through possibilities in his mind, each worse than the last. The command center doors slid open. Inside, Hampton stood with 3 other senior staff members. They all turned to look at Daniel with expressions he couldn't quite read. Fear? Awe? Confusion? "What's going on?" Daniel asked. Hampton handed him a data tablet without a word. Daniel looked down at the official seal of the Kellarian Empire, glowing on the screen. His hands started to shake slightly as he read. The message was direct and formal. Queen Vishara of the Kellarian Empire requested the immediate presence of xenobiologist Daniel Brooks at the Imperial Palace. A royal transport would arrive within the hour. Attendance was not optional. "This has to be a mistake," Daniel said quietly. "The Queen wouldn't summon me. I'm nobody. I just study plants." "We checked 3 times," Hampton replied. "It's legitimate. The authentication codes are genuine." "Daniel, the Queen hasn't personally summoned any human in over 50 years. What did you do?" "Nothing. I haven't even been to the surface in 2 months. I just work in the lab." Daniel's mind raced through every interaction he'd had with Kellarian officials. There was nothing unusual. He always followed protocols. He was careful to respect their customs. "Well, something caught her attention," said Linda Chen, the station's cultural liaison. "You need to prepare. The transport will be here in 45 minutes. The next 45 minutes passed in a blur. Linda gave him a rushed lesson on Imperial protocol. Don't speak unless spoken to. Keep his eyes lowered, unless addressing the Queen directly. Never turn his back on her. The list of rules seemed endless. Daniel changed into his formal station uniform, the one he'd worn maybe twice since arriving. His hands fumbled with the collar. This didn't make sense. Why would the most powerful being in the Kellarian Empire want to see him? The Kellarians were an old race, ancient even by galactic standards. They had mastered space travel when humans were still figuring out agriculture. Their empire spanned dozens of systems. Queen Vishara herself had ruled for over 300 years. She was legendary, mysterious, and according to all reports, absolutely terrifying. The royal transport arrived exactly on time. It was nothing like the simple shuttles Daniel was used to. The ship gleamed with a dark metallic surface that seemed to shift colors in the light. Kellarian guards stood at attention by the entrance, their insectoid features unreadable behind ceremonial armor. Daniel climbed aboard on shaking legs. The interior was surprisingly comfortable, with seats that adjusted to his human form, but he couldn't relax. The guards said nothing during the entire flight down to the planet's surface. Through the window, Daniel watched as they descended through the purple clouds. The capital city of Kellarian Prime spread out below, a massive sprawl of crystalline towers and geometric structures that hurt his eyes to look at for too long. At the city's heart stood the Imperial Palace, a structure so large it had its own weather systems. The transport landed on a private platform high on the palace's eastern tower. More guards waited. They escorted Daniel through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were made of some kind of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. The ceiling was so high above that it disappeared into darkness. They passed other Calarians, palace staff, and officials who stopped to stare at the human being led through their halls. Daniel heard the clicking sounds of their language, too rapid for his translator to catch. He kept his eyes forward and tried to control his breathing. Finally, they reached a set of massive doors. Each door was at least 30 feet tall, carved with scenes Daniel didn't understand. The guards stopped, and one of them spoke for the first time. "The Queen waits inside. You will show proper respect." The doors began to open with a sound like distant thunder. Daniel's mouth went dry. Beyond the doors was a throne room larger than any building he'd ever been inside. Pillars of crystal rose like trees, and the floor was polished so smooth it reflected everything like still water. At the far end, elevated on a platform of white stone, sat the Queen. She was enormous, as all Calarians were, easily 12 feet tall even while seated. Her body had the angular, segmented appearance of her species, but there was an elegance to her that Daniel hadn't expected. Her carapace was deep black with patterns of gold and silver. Her eyes, multiple and faceted, watched him approach. Daniel walked forward on trembling legs. The throne room was completely silent except for his footsteps echoing off the crystal walls. When he reached what seemed like a respectful distance, he stopped and bowed as Linda had taught him. "Closer," the Queen said. Her voice was surprisingly gentle, speaking perfect English. Daniel stepped forward, his heart hammered in his chest. The Queen made a gesture with one elegant limb, and Daniel heard the massive doors close behind him. He glanced back and realized something stunning. All the guards were gone. The throne room was empty except for the two of them. Queen Vishara leaned forward slightly on her throne. Those ancient, alien eyes studied him with an intensity that made Daniel feel like she could see straight through to his thoughts. "Daniel Brooks," she said quietly, "I have brought you here because I need something that only a human can provide." Daniel stood frozen in place, trying to process what was happening. The queen of the most powerful empire in known space needed something from him. A simple botanist who spent his days looking at alien plants through microscopes. It didn't make any sense. "Your Majesty, I don't understand," Daniel said carefully, keeping his voice steady despite his fear. "I'm just a researcher. I don't have any special skills or knowledge that would be useful to you." The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then, to Daniel's complete surprise, she rose from her throne and descended the steps of the platform. She moved with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. When she reached the floor level, she was still towering over him, but somehow it felt less intimidating. "Do you know how long I have ruled this empire?" she asked. 300 years, Your Majesty," Daniel replied. 317 years, she corrected. "I was crowned when I was barely an adult by your standards. My father died unexpectedly, and I inherited a kingdom I was not prepared to lead. But I learned. I studied. I made decisions that affected billions of lives. I expanded our territory, strengthened our defenses, negotiated treaties that prevented wars." She moved to one of the great windows that looked out over the city. Daniel wasn't sure if he should follow, so he stayed where he was. "I have never complained about my duty," the Queen continued. "I have never questioned my purpose. The Calarian way is simple. We are born to serve the Empire in whatever capacity we are designed for. I was designed to rule. So I rule." Daniel listened carefully, trying to understand where this was going. The Queen turned back to face him. In the light from the window, the gold patterns on her carapace seemed to glow. "But lately, something has changed. I feel hollow, empty, as if something vital is missing from my existence. I wake each day and perform my duties. I make my decisions. I attend my councils. And yet, when the day ends, I feel nothing but this strange void inside me. She moved closer to Daniel, and he had to resist the urge to step back. I consulted my advisors. They ran medical examinations. They checked for poisons, for diseases, for neural corruption. They found nothing wrong. My mind is sharp. My body is healthy. But this feeling remains. I don't know if I can help with that, Your Majesty, Daniel said honestly. I'm not a doctor. I know what you are. The Queen replied. I have studied humans extensively. Your species fascinates me. You are weak by galactic standards. Your lifespans are short. Your technology is primitive compared to the older races. And yet you have something that we do not. She gestured around the empty throne room. I have thousands of servants, millions of subjects, an entire empire that depends on me. But I have no one who knows me. Not truly. Every person I speak to sees only the crown. Every conversation is formal. Every relationship is bound by duty and protocol. No one speaks to me as simply another being. Understanding began to dawn on Daniel. You're lonely. The Queen tilted her head. Lonely. Yes. I researched this word when I first felt these feelings. It is a human concept. My species does not acknowledge such emotions. We believe personal connections are weaknesses that distract from duty. A Kalarian who seeks companionship outside of functional relationships is considered defective. But you're not defective, Daniel said quietly. You're just alive, and living things need connection. It doesn't matter what species you are. The Queen made a sound that Daniel's translator couldn't interpret. It might have been a laugh. It might have been sadness. My court would consider such thinking dangerous. They would say, I am compromised, that I have lost perspective. She returned to the platform but didn't sit on the throne. Instead, she sat on the steps, bringing herself closer to Daniel's height. The gesture was so casual, so informal, that it shocked him more than anything else that had happened. I watched recordings of human interactions, the Queen said. I saw how you form bonds with each other, how you share parts of yourselves that have nothing to do with function or purpose. You laugh together. You comfort each other. You choose to spend time together even when there is no practical reason to do so. And I realized that I have never experienced anything like that. Not once in 317 years. Daniel felt a wave of sympathy wash over him. He thought about his own life, about his friends back on Earth, about the casual conversations with his co-workers on the station. He tried to imagine going 3 centuries without ever having a real friend. The thought was crushing. Your Majesty, why did you summon me specifically? He asked. Because I read your personnel file, she said. You are known for your patience, for your genuine interest in understanding other cultures. Your supervisor noted that you spend time learning Kalarian customs not because you have to, but because you want to. You treat the local workers on your station with respect and curiosity. The Queen's multiple eyes focused on him intently. And because you are human. If I were to attempt this with a Kalarian, they would be horrified. They would report me to the council as mentally unstable. But you come from a culture where such connections are normal. You understand what I am feeling. Quote, Daniel's mind was racing. This was beyond anything he could have imagined. The Queen wasn't asking for political advice or scientific expertise. She was asking for something far more complex and far more personal. Your Majesty, he said slowly, are you asking me to teach you how to have a friend? The Queen stood up from the steps. For a moment, Daniel thought he had offended her. But then she spoke, and her voice was quieter than before. Yes, she said simply. That is exactly what I am asking. I know it is strange. I know it is unprecedented. Gopon. But I have all the power in this empire. And yet I cannot command someone to care about me as a person rather than a title. I cannot order someone to be genuine with me. So, I am asking, will you help me understand what I have been missing? Daniel looked up at the alien queen, at this powerful being who ruled star systems and commanded fleets, and saw something he never expected to see. Vulnerability, hope, and a deep, aching loneliness that transcended species. He took a breath and made a decision that would change both their lives. Yes, Your Majesty, he said. I'll try. Daniel returned to the palace 3 days later, carrying a small bag with items from the research station. His hands were sweating as the guards led him through the familiar corridors to the Queen's private chambers. This was different from the formal throne room. This was her personal space, and he felt nervous about entering it. The Queen was waiting in a room filled with soft light from glowing panels in the walls. The space was surprisingly simple, with minimal furniture and large windows overlooking the city. She turned when he entered, and Daniel noticed she seemed almost as nervous as he felt. I brought some things, Daniel said, setting his bag down. I thought they might help with our lessons. Lessons, the Queen repeated. That word feels strange. I have not been a student in over 200 years. Daniel pulled out a small potted plant from his bag. It was a simple earth flower, a daisy, that he had grown in the station's greenhouse. This is for you. Crow. The Queen moved closer, examining the flower with fascination. It is beautiful. What is its purpose? Does it produce medicine? Food? No purpose, Daniel said. I just thought you might like it. That's kind of the point of giving gifts to friends. Not because it's useful, but because it might make them happy. The Queen carefully took the pot in her large hands, holding it as if it were made of glass. I have received thousands of gifts as Queen, tributes from conquered worlds, offerings from ambitious nobles. But no one has ever given me something simply to make me happy. She placed the flower on a table near the window where it would get sunlight. Thank you, Daniel. I do like it very much. Over the next hour, Daniel introduced her to simple Earth games. He had brought a chess set, thinking the strategy would appeal to her tactical mind. As they played, he explained that games were not just about winning, but about spending time together and enjoying the challenge. The Queen learned the rules quickly, her intelligence obvious in how fast she adapted to the game's patterns. But when she made a brilliant move that trapped Daniel's king, she looked confused by his reaction. You are smiling even though you lost, she observed. Because it was a great move, Daniel explained. I can appreciate the skill, even when it's used against me. That's part of the fun. Fun, the Queen said slowly. We have entertainment in Calarian culture. Competitions, displays of skill, but they are always about proving superiority, not about shared enjoyment. As the days passed, Daniel visited the palace regularly. The Queen cleared time in her schedule, something that shocked her advisors. They had never seen her prioritize personal activities before. During one visit, Daniel brought music from Earth. He played songs on a small, portable device, everything from classical symphonies to modern electronic compositions. The Queen listened with intense focus. This one makes me feel strange, she said when a particularly emotional piano piece played. Like, something is expanding in my chest. That's what music does, Daniel said. It creates feelings. You're experiencing the emotions the composer wanted to share. The Queen was silent for a long time after that, just listening. When the piece ended, she asked Daniel to play it again. And then again. By the fourth playing, Daniel noticed her eyes were different, somehow softer. Are you okay? He asked gently. I think I might be sad, the Queen said with wonder in her voice. But it is not a bad feeling. It is beautiful somehow. How is that possible? Because emotions aren't just good or bad, Daniel explained. They're complex. Sometimes sadness can be beautiful because it means you're connecting with something meaningful. The breakthrough came during their second week of regular visits. Daniel had asked the Queen about her childhood, expecting her to discuss her royal training. Instead, she surprised him by talking about something personal. "I had a garden when I was young," she said quietly. "Before I became queen. It was small, hidden behind the palace training grounds. I grew plants that served no purpose except that I found them beautiful. My tutors said it was a waste of time, that a future queen should not indulge in pointless activities." "What happened to it?" Daniel asked. "When my father died and I took the throne, I ordered it destroyed. I told myself it was time to put away childish things. But sometimes I still think about it, the way the morning light would catch on the silver leaves of the Kelmar plants." She looked at Daniel, and he saw real vulnerability in her expression. "I have never told anyone that before. Why did I tell you?" "Because that's what friends do," Daniel said. "We share parts of ourselves that we keep hidden from everyone else. The real parts, the parts that matter." From that day forward, their conversations deepened. The Queen began to open up about the weight of her crown, about decisions that haunted her, about the loneliness of making choices that affected billions of lives with no one to truly share the burden. Daniel shared his own stories in return. He told her about his family on Earth, about his father who had encouraged his love of science, about his mother who had cried when he left for the research station. He talked about his fears and his dreams, treating her not as a powerful monarch, but as another person trying to understand the universe. One afternoon, they were walking through one of the palace's meditation gardens when the Queen suddenly stopped. "Daniel, I need to ask you something. Am I doing this correctly? Being a friend?" Daniel thought about it carefully. "There's no correct way. Friendship isn't like following a protocol. It's about being genuine with each other." "But I want to do it right," the Queen insisted. "You have given me so much. Your time, your honesty, your patience. What can I give you in return?" "You already have," Daniel said. "You've shared yourself with me, your real thoughts and feelings. You've trusted me with parts of yourself that you've kept hidden for 300 years. That's everything." The Queen sat down on one of the garden benches, and Daniel sat beside her. "I find myself thinking about our conversations when I am in council meetings, wondering what you would think about certain decisions, wanting to share small moments with you. Is this normal?" "Very normal," Daniel assured her. "That's what it feels like to have a friend. They become part of your thoughts, part of your life." "I like it," the Queen said simply. "But it also frightens me. What if I lose this? What if something happens and you cannot visit anymore?" "Then we'll figure it out," Daniel said. "Friends don't give up on each other, just because things get difficult." A palace servant approached nervously. "Your Majesty, the council is waiting for you. The meeting was scheduled to begin 10 minutes ago." The Queen waved a dismissive hand. "Tell them I will arrive. When I arrive, they can wait." After the servant left, Daniel laughed. "You just made the entire council wait because you were talking to me. They're probably furious." "Let them be," the Queen said, and there was something new in her voice. Confidence mixed with defiance. "For 300 years, I have made myself available to them at every moment. They can spare me this time." She turned to Daniel. "You asked me once what I would have chosen if I had not been born to rule. I have been thinking about that question. I think I would have been a gardener. Or perhaps a musician. Something where I could create beauty instead of managing power." "It's not too late," Daniel said. "You can still create beauty. You can still have parts of your life that are just for you." The Queen stood up, looking out over the garden. "You have given me something precious. Daniel Brooks, you have shown me that I am more than my crown, that I can be both a queen and a person. That these things do not have to be in conflict. She smiled then. A genuine expression of warmth that transformed her entire appearance. Thank you, my friend. Daniel smiled back. You're welcome, my friend. As they walked back toward the palace together, Daniel noticed something that made his heart warm. The queen was humming softly, the melody of the piano piece he had played for her days ago. She had remembered it. More than that, she had let it become part of her. In the council chamber, the advisors waited impatiently, but the queen entered with a lightness in her step that none of them had ever seen before. And when she made her decisions that day, they were informed not just by logic and tradition, but by a deeper understanding of what it meant to truly live. The change had begun, and there would be no going back. Claude is AI, and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Sonnet 4.5. The first whispers started in the palace corridors within days. By the end of the second week, the entire Kelarian Empire knew that Queen Vishara had taken a human as a personal companion. The news spread like fire through dry grass, jumping from planet to planet across the communication networks. Daniel noticed the change immediately. When he walked through the palace now, Kelarian officials stopped their conversations to stare. Some looked curious. Others looked openly hostile. The palace guards watched him with what he had learned to recognize as disapproval in their rigid postures. On the research station, Director Hampton called him almost daily. The Earth Diplomatic Corps is having fits, Hampton said during one particularly tense conversation. They're terrified you're going to cause some kind of political incident. They want to know exactly what you're doing with the Queen. I'm just spending time with her, Daniel explained for the 10th time. We talk. We share meals. It's nothing complicated. Nothing complicated? Hampton's laugh was bitter. Daniel, you've somehow become the most politically significant human in this sector of space. And you're treating it like it's a casual friendship. That's because it is, Daniel said quietly. That's the whole point. But he knew the situation was becoming dangerous. He could feel the tension building like pressure before a storm. The storm finally broke 3 months after his first visit to the palace. Daniel was in one of the meditation gardens with the Queen when a palace servant approached. The Kelarian bowed low, his antenna trembling with nervousness. Your Majesty, High Chancellor Corvus requests an immediate audience. He says it is a matter of imperial security. The Queen's posture shifted. Daniel had learned to read her body language over the past weeks. She was not happy about this interruption. Very well, she said. Inform the Chancellor I will receive him in the main throne room in 1 hour. The servant hurried away. The Queen turned to Daniel. This is not good. Corvus has been waiting for an opportunity to challenge me on this. I knew it would come eventually. Writing, I'm wanted. Should I leave the palace? Daniel asked. I don't want to cause problems for you. No, the Queen said firmly. I want you present at this meeting. You are my cultural liaison. You have every right to be there. An hour later, Daniel stood beside the Queen's throne as High Chancellor Corvus entered with a group of senior nobles. Corvus was ancient even by Kelarian standards, his carapace marked with the patterns of extreme age. He had served the Empire for over 400 years and was second only to the Queen in authority. The Chancellor bowed to the Queen, but his movements were stiff and formal, cold. Your Majesty, I come before you with grave concerns shared by many in your government, Corvus began. His voice was harsh, like stones grinding together. Your recent behavior has caused alarm throughout the Empire. Speak plainly, Chancellor, the Queen said. Very well. Your association with this human has compromised your judgment. You have been seen engaging in frivolous activities. You have been observed showing personal emotions. You have neglected traditional ceremonies in favor of spending time with an alien whose species has contributed nothing of value to our empire. Daniel felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his face neutral. The Queen had warned him this would happen. Furthermore, Corvus continued, pulling out a data device. We have evidence that this human may be manipulating you for political gain. He represents Earth's interests, and his influence over you could be used to extract favorable treaties and concessions from the Empire. That's not true, Daniel said before he could stop himself. Corvus turned his multifaceted eyes toward Daniel with obvious contempt. The human speaks out of turn in the presence of the Queen. This alone demonstrates the corruption of proper protocol. Other nobles murmured their agreement. Daniel saw several of them looking at him with clear hostility. The Queen rose from her throne. The entire room fell silent. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of centuries of authority. You forget yourself, Chancellor. I decide who may speak in my presence. I decide what activities are worthy of my time, and I decide who I choose to associate with. End quote. End quote. End quote. End quote. Your Majesty. With respect, you are not thinking clearly, Corvus said. This human has introduced dangerous concepts into your mind. Emotions. Personal attachments. These things weaken a ruler. They cloud judgment. In 300 years, you have been a model of Kalarian strength and discipline. In 3 months with this human, you have become unpredictable. More nobles voiced their support for the Chancellor's words. Daniel could see the Queen was surrounded by opposition from her own government. I propose that this human be expelled from Kalarian space immediately, Corvus declared. For the good of the Empire, for the preservation of our values, and for your own protection, Your Majesty. The throne room erupted in clicking voices as the nobles debated. Most seemed to agree with Corvus. Daniel felt his heart sinking. This was exactly what he had feared. His friendship with the Queen was causing her political damage. The Queen raised one limb, and the room fell silent again. She looked at Daniel, and he could see the conflict in her eyes. He knew what she was thinking. The easy choice would be to send him away, to return to her old life of isolation. It would solve all these political problems. Daniel made the decision for her. Your Majesty, he said quietly, I should go. The Chancellor is right that my presence here is causing difficulties for you. I never wanted to make your life harder. I'll leave today. The Queen stared at him. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then something changed in her posture. She stood straighter. Her eyes swept across the assembled nobles with a new intensity. No, she said. You will not leave. Corvus stepped forward. Your Majesty, you cannot be serious. The entire court opposes this. You are risking your credibility as a ruler. Am I? The Queen asked. Her voice was dangerous now. Tell me, Chancellor, in your 400 years of service, have you ever seen me make an unwise decision regarding the Empire? No, Your Majesty, but have you ever known me to be weak or ineffective in my duties? Of course not. But this is different. It is only different because you do not understand it. The Queen interrupted. You believe that a ruler who acknowledges emotions is weak. You think that seeking personal connection is a flaw. But I have learned something these past months that you have not. Understanding emotions does not make me weak. It makes me wiser. She descended from the platform, moving among the nobles. They backed away slightly, uncertain of this new energy from their queen. A queen who understands loneliness can better understand her people who suffer, she said. A queen who knows friendship can recognize loyalty more clearly. A queen who has felt vulnerability can lead with both strength and compassion. Daniel has not weakened me. He has shown me dimensions of leadership that I was blind to before. The nobles looked at each other, uncertain now. I will not abandon him, the Queen declared, and I will not apologize for growing as a being. If that makes me a flawed queen in your eyes, then perhaps you need to reconsider what true strength means. Corvus's antenna quivered with anger. Your Majesty, this decision will have consequences. Many in the Empire will not accept this. Then they will learn to accept it, the Queen said coldly. Or they will learn that I am still the same Queen who has led this empire for 3 centuries. I do not make this choice lightly, but I make it freely. She turned to Daniel. You will remain as my official cultural liaison. Anyone who has issues with this arrangement may bring them to me directly. The throne room was silent except for the quiet clicking of nervous Calarian nobles. Corvus bowed stiffly, his displeasure obvious in every movement. As you command, Your Majesty, he said. Then he turned and left, followed by many of the other nobles. When the room had mostly cleared, Daniel approached the Queen. You didn't have to do that. You took a huge risk. The Queen looked down at him. That is what friends do, is it not? They take risks for each other. You have taught me that much. Daniel smiled despite his worry. Yes. But as he left the palace that evening, Daniel could feel hostile eyes watching him from the shadows. This battle might be won, but the war was far from over. 4 months had passed since the confrontation in the throne room. Daniel walked through the palace gardens in the early morning light, watching the crystalline flowers open their petals to catch the sun. The palace had become familiar to him now, almost like a second home. The empire was changing, though the transformation was slow and uneven. Some planets had embraced the Queen's new openness with enthusiasm. Daniel had heard reports of young Calarians asking questions about emotions and personal relationships, things that had been forbidden topics for generations. But other worlds remained deeply traditional, viewing any change as a threat to their ancient ways. The Queen herself had transformed in ways that surprised everyone, including Daniel. She still commanded with absolute authority when needed. But there was a warmth to her, now that hadn't existed before. She listened to her advisors differently, considering not just the logical outcomes of decisions, but how they would affect people's lives. Her judgments had become more nuanced, more compassionate. Daniel turned a corner in the garden and found the Queen waiting for him at their usual meeting spot. She sat on a bench designed for Calarians, but she had ordered a smaller one placed beside it for Daniel months ago. Good morning, she said as he approached. Good morning, Your Majesty, Daniel replied, sitting down. I have told you many times, when we are alone, you may call me Vashara, she said, with what Daniel had learned to recognize as amusement. Old habits, Daniel said with a smile. You're still kind of intimidating, you know. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the garden wake up around them. This had become their routine. Early morning conversations, before the demands of the day took over. Sometimes they talked about serious things. Sometimes they just enjoyed the quiet together. I received an interesting proposal yesterday, the Queen said. Several members of the younger council suggested creating a formal cultural exchange program between Earth and Calarion. Not for trade or military purposes, but simply for understanding. They credit you as the inspiration. Daniel felt a warmth spread through his chest. That's amazing. Did you approve it? I told them to develop a detailed plan, the Queen said. But yes, I think it is a good idea. If one friendship can create this much change, imagine what many could accomplish. Daniel's communication device beeped. He glanced at it and felt his stomach drop. It was a priority message from Earth. From his mother. The Queen noticed his expression immediately. What is wrong? Daniel read the message quickly, his hands beginning to shake. It's my father. He's in the hospital. They say he had a heart attack. It's serious. He looked up at the Queen, feeling torn. Stop, the Queen said gently. She stood up, and Daniel stood with her. Of course you must go to your father. Family is important. That is one of the things you taught me. But the exchange program and the council meetings next week, Daniel protested. You need me here. The Queen made a dismissive gesture. The Empire has existed for thousands of years. It will survive without you for a while. Your father needs you now. That is more important. She touched a communication panel on her wrist. This is Queen Vashara. I need my fastest courier ship prepared immediately for a journey to Earth. Priority authorization. Quote, Your Majesty, you don't have to do that, Daniel said. I can take a commercial transport. A commercial transport would take 3 weeks, the Queen replied. My courier ship will have you there in 5 days. Your father may not have 3 weeks. Daniel felt tears forming in his eyes. Thank you. I promise. I'll come back as soon as I can. The Queen reached into a fold in her ceremonial robes and pulled out a small crystalline object. It glowed with a soft blue light. This is a Kalarian healing crystal. It will not cure your father, but it will help with pain and provide comfort. Give it to him with my hopes for his recovery. Daniel took the crystal carefully. It was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with its own gentle rhythm. He knew such crystals were rare and valuable, usually reserved for Kalarian nobility. I don't know what to say, Daniel whispered. You do not need to say anything, the Queen replied. This is what friends do. You have taught me that. We support each other in difficult times. We put each other's needs before our own wants. She walked with him toward the palace landing platforms. As they walked, Daniel thought about how much had changed since that first terrifying night when he had been summoned before her. Back then, she had been an isolated ruler trapped by duty and tradition. Now, she was someone who understood the value of genuine connection. At the landing platform, the courier ship was already prepared. It was sleek and fast, designed for urgent imperial business. The pilot stood waiting, having received orders directly from the Queen. How long will you be gone? The Queen asked. I don't know, Daniel admitted. It depends on how my father recovers. Could be a few weeks. Could be months. Take whatever time you need, the Queen said. Your position here will be waiting for you. And Daniel, send messages when you can. I would like to know how your father is doing. Daniel smiled through his worry. I will. And thank you, Vashara, for everything. The Queen did something then that would have shocked the entire imperial court. She leaned down and embraced Daniel in the human fashion, something she had learned over their months of friendship. It was awkward because of their size difference, but it was genuine. Travel safely, my friend, she said quietly. Daniel boarded the ship, and within minutes, they were lifting off from the palace. Through the viewport, he could see the Queen still standing on the platform, watching his departure. He thought about how afraid she must have been that first day, admitting her loneliness to a stranger. How much courage it had taken to ask for help. As Kalarian Prime grew smaller behind them, Daniel activated his communication device and began composing a message to his mother, telling her he was on his way. Then, he sent another message, this one to the Queen. Thank you for showing me that friendship can cross any distance, even between species. You've become one of the most important people in my life. I'll be back soon. The response came quickly. And you have shown me that even a queen can have a friend. Safe journey, Daniel. We will be here when you return. Daniel settled into his seat for the long journey home. He held the healing crystal in his hands, feeling its gentle warmth. Outside the viewport, stars streaked past as the ship accelerated to faster-than-light speeds. Behind him on Kalarian Prime, the Queen returned to her duties. But something had fundamentally changed in how she approached them. When she entered the council chamber that afternoon, she brought not just authority and wisdom, but understanding and empathy. High Chancellor Corvus watched her with disapproval. But even he could not deny that her decisions had become more thoughtful, more complete. The younger council members looked at her with new respect, seeing a leader who balanced strength with compassion. That evening, the Queen stood alone in her private chambers, looking out at the city below. For the first time in 317 years, she truly understood what it meant to miss someone. It was uncomfortable, this feeling of absence. But it was also proof that she had finally achieved what she had sought. She was no longer alone. Somewhere in the space between stars, Daniel was racing toward Earth, carrying a gift from an alien queen to his human father. And in a few weeks or months, he would return. They would continue their unlikely friendship. They would keep learning from each other. And perhaps, one conversation at a time, one friendship at a time, they would help build a galaxy where connection mattered as much as power, where understanding was valued as highly as strength. The Queen smiled, a gesture that still felt new to her. Then she turned from the window and went to her desk. She had messages to send, including one to Earth's diplomatic corps, officially approving the cultural exchange program. After all, she had promised Daniel she would keep working on being a good friend, even when he was far away. And a promise to a friend was something worth keeping, no matter how many star systems separated them.